There was a time when change came slowly. A new invention would take years, sometimes decades, to spread across the world. People had time to adjust, time to question, time to understand what was happening around them. There was space to think, to reflect, and to decide whether something was good or whether it carried consequences that had not yet been seen. Society moved at a pace where people could process change before it became permanent. But that is no longer the world we are living in. Now, change happens almost overnight. One moment, something sounds like science fiction, and the next, it's part of your daily life. What once seemed distant is now normal. What once seemed impossible is now expected. And what once raised concern is now embraced without hesitation. We are living in a time where the speed of transformation is unlike anything humanity has ever experienced before. Artificial intelligence is no longer something confined to laboratories. It is now embedded into everyday life. It writes, it speaks, it learns, it observes. It is shaping businesses, influencing decisions, and even guiding the way people think and interact. Systems are becoming faster, smarter, and more connected than ever before. What used to require human effort is now being automated, analyzed, and optimized by machines that never sleep. And alongside this, another shift is taking place. One that is just as significant, if not more. We are moving from physical systems to digital systems, from paper identification to digital identity, from cash to contactless, from independence to integration. Everything is becoming connected. Everything is becoming streamlined. Everything is becoming centralized. And while this is often presented as progress, very few are asking where this is ultimately leading. Because when everything is connected, everything can be controlled. But the question we must ask is this: what happens when access to everything depends on that system? Because the more connected a system becomes, the more control it allows. If your identity is digital, it can be verified. If your money is digital, it can be tracked. If your behavior is monitored, it can be analyzed. And if all of these systems are linked together, they can be controlled. This is not fear. This is reality. We are watching the infrastructure of a new kind of world being built right in front of us. A world where everything is faster, everything is smarter, everything is more efficient. But also a world where everything can be monitored, restricted, and managed. A world where the systems that make life easier also hold the power to limit access. And what makes this moment even more striking is that these changes are not hidden. They are happening openly. Even world leaders are speaking about the acceleration of this technological future. Recently, Donald Trump spoke about the importance of winning the race for 6G technology. At first, that may sound like just another step forward in communication. Another upgrade, another improvement. But it represents something much bigger. Because 6G is not just about faster internet speeds. It is about deeper integration. It is about connecting devices, systems, and potentially even the human body in ways that have never been done before. It is about building a world where everything is linked, everything is responsive, and everything is constantly communicating in real time. And when you begin to understand that, something should stand out. Because we are no longer just talking about technology around us. We are moving toward technology that interacts with us in ways that are more personal, more invasive, and more integrated than ever before. Now, this does not mean that every advancement is evil. It does not mean that every new system is dangerous. but it does mean that we must pay attention. Because technology itself is neutral, but how it is used determines everything. Throughout history, the most powerful tools have always had the greatest potential for both good and harm. And what we are seeing now is the rise of tools that are more powerful than anything humanity has ever had before. We are watching the early stages of a world where identity, communication, finance, and behavior are all being woven together into one interconnected system. A system that is efficient, intelligent, and incredibly powerful. And yet, the most important detail is not the technology itself. It is how people are responding to it. Because people are not resisting these changes. They are embracing them. They are embracing the convenience. They are embracing the speed. They are embracing the simplicity. Every new feature, every new system, every new update is being welcomed because it makes life easier, because it removes friction, because it promises a smoother way of living. But throughout history, one of the most dangerous exchanges has always been this. People are willing to trade freedom for convenience. And when that trade happens slowly, almost invisibly, it becomes even more powerful. We are now seeing a generation grow up that has never known a world without constant digital connection. A generation that is comfortable scanning, verifying, logging in, and sinking every part of their lives into systems they do not fully understand. A generation that sees this level of integration not as unusual, but as normal. And little by little, dependency is increasing. Not through force, but through choice. That is what makes this moment so significant. Because when something is forced, people resist. But when something is welcomed, it becomes permanent. And right now, we are living in a time where the foundation of something much bigger is being laid. Not in secret, not hidden, but in plain sight. A world that is more connected than ever before, a world that is more advanced than ever before, a world that is changing faster than ever before. And the question is no longer whether things are changing. The question is whether we truly understand what those changes are leading toward, and whether we are spiritually awake enough to discern the times we are living in. What begins as convenience can quietly become control. And that is the pattern we are starting to see unfold before our eyes. Because the systems that are being built today are not just designed to make life easier, they are designed to manage access. Access to services, access to money, access to travel, access to everyday life. And once access can be managed, it can also be restricted. That is the reality of any system that holds authority over how people interact with the world around them. We are moving into a time where identity is no longer just something you carry. It is something that must be verified. Digital identity systems are being introduced across nations, allowing individuals to prove who they are instantly through technology. On the surface, this seems efficient. It removes paperwork. It speeds up processes. It simplifies interactions. But there is another side to it. Because when identity becomes digital, it also becomes something that can be controlled. It can be approved, denied, flagged, or restricted. It becomes something that exists within a system, rather than something that belongs entirely to you. And once your identity is inside a system, your access to that system becomes dependent on its rules. Now consider money. For generations, people have relied on physical cash, something tangible, something they could hold, something they could use freely. But that is changing rapidly. We are moving toward a world where money is becoming entirely digital. Payments are now made through phones, cards, and online systems. Physical currency is slowly fading into the background. And digital money behaves very differently from physical money. It can be tracked, it can be monitored, it can be limited, it can even be programmed. Imagine a world where your money is not just stored, but controlled. Where spending can be restricted based on certain conditions. Where access to your own finances could be paused, delayed, or denied. Where transactions could be approved or rejected depending on compliance with a system. This is not a distant possibility. This is the direction in which financial systems are moving. And when you combine digital identity with digital currency, something incredibly powerful is created. A system where who you are and what you can access are directly linked. A system where your ability to participate in everyday life is tied to your status within that system. Now add another layer to this: surveillance. We are living in the most monitored generation in human history. Cameras are everywhere. Data is constantly being collected. Every interaction, every click, every movement can be recorded, analyzed, and stored. Technology is not just observing what we do, it is learning from it. Systems are being developed that can analyze behavior, detect patterns, and even predict actions. Artificial intelligence is being used to interpret data on a level that humans cannot match. It can identify habits, preferences, and tendencies with incredible accuracy. And when surveillance is combined with identity and finance, the result is something far more than technology. It becomes a system of control, a system where behavior can be monitored, a system where access can be adjusted, a system where participation can be conditional. And this is where it becomes deeply significant. Because long before any of this technology existed, there was a warning written in Scripture. In the book of Revelation, chapter 13, it speaks of a time when no one will be able to buy or sell unless they have a specific mark. For many years, people read those words and wondered how such a thing could ever be possible. How could the entire world be controlled in such a precise and universal way? But today, for the first time in history, we are beginning to see how. Because the technology now exists to make it possible. A system where identity is required. A system where money is digital. A system where access can be controlled. Now understand this clearly. This does not mean that what we are seeing right now is that mark. But it does show that the world is being prepared for something like it. Because before any system is fully established, the infrastructure must exist. And before the infrastructure exists, the mindset must be ready. And right now, both are developing at the same time. The systems are being built, and the people are becoming comfortable with them. That is the real shift that is taking place. Because control does not begin with force. It begins with acceptance. When people accept systems without question, those systems grow stronger. When people become dependent on those systems become necessary. And when something becomes necessary, it becomes very difficult to live without it. That is how influence becomes power. And that is how power becomes control. We are watching the rise of systems that have the ability to shape behavior, regulate access, and influence daily life in ways that were never possible before. Systems that can decide who participates and who does not. Systems that can determine what is allowed and what is restricted. And what is most striking is how normal all of this is beginning to feel. Scanning a code is normal. Verifying your identity is normal. Using digital payments is normal. Being tracked through devices is normal. All of it is becoming part of everyday life. And when something becomes normal, it is no longer questioned. That is why this moment matters so much. Because once a system is fully accepted, it becomes incredibly powerful. And once it becomes powerful, it becomes very difficult to resist. We are moving toward a world where systems are not just tools. They are gatekeepers. Gatekeepers of access. Gatekeepers of opportunity. Gatekeepers of participation. And if access to life itself can be managed, then control over life itself becomes possible. This is not about fear. This is about awareness. Because what begins as convenience can become dependence. And what becomes dependence can eventually become control. And if we are not paying attention, we may wake up one day to find that the systems we trusted have become the systems that govern every part of our lives. That is the rise of control systems, and it is happening right now. Everything we have talked about leads to one unavoidable truth. This is not just about technology. This is not just about systems. This is not just about the future of the world. This is about the condition of the human heart. Because behind every system, behind every structure, behind every shift we are seeing in the world today, there is a deeper spiritual reality at work. And if we only look at what is happening on the surface, we will miss what is happening underneath. The Bible makes it clear that in the last days, deception will not come in an obvious form. It will not arrive looking evil. It will not announce itself as darkness. Instead, it will come in a way that appears right. It will look like progress. It will feel like safety. It will sound like a solution to the problems of the world. But underneath it, there will be something else at work. Something spiritual, something deceptive, something designed to pull people away from truth without them even realizing it. Scripture warns us in 2 Corinthians 4 verse 4 that the God of this world has blinded the minds of unbelievers. That means deception is not just possible, it is powerful. It can influence how people think, how they see, and how they interpret what is happening around them. It means people can be surrounded by truth and still not recognize it. It means something can be right in front of them and yet they cannot see it for what it truly is. And that is why this moment is so serious. Because we are not just watching systems rise, we are watching a mindset shift. People are becoming more comfortable with control, more comfortable with being monitored, more comfortable with systems making decisions for them. What once would have been questioned is now accepted. What once would have raised concern is now seen as normal, and slowly, the line between freedom and control is becoming blurred. The Bible also tells us in Matthew 24, verse 24, that false messiahs and false prophets will arise and deceive many. Notice that word, many. Not a few, not a small group, but many. That means deception in the last days will be widespread. It will be convincing. It will be persuasive. And it will be accepted by large numbers of people who believe they are doing the right thing. That is why the greatest danger is not obvious evil. The greatest danger is deception that looks like truth. Because when something looks right, people do not question it. When something feels beneficial, people do not resist it. And when something solves problems, people are quick to embrace it without asking what it might cost them in the long run. And this is where it becomes personal. Because the question is no longer just about what is happening in the world. The question is, are you ready? Not ready in a physical sense, not ready in terms of knowledge or awareness alone, but ready spiritually. ready in your relationship with God, ready in your faith, ready in your ability to stand when everything around you is shifting. Because if your faith is shallow, it will not survive pressure. If your relationship with God is distant, it will not sustain you in difficult times. If your foundation is weak, it will not hold when the world begins to change in ways that challenge everything you believe. There may come a time when following Christ is no longer convenient, a time when standing for truth carries a cost, a time when you have to choose between what is easy and what is right. And in that moment, your decision will not be based on what you know. It will be based on who you are. That is why preparation must happen now, not later, not when things become more obvious. Now. Now is the time to strengthen your faith. Now is the time to deepen your relationship with God. Now is the time to become spiritually grounded so that you are not easily shaken by what is happening around you. Because the more the world changes, the more important it becomes to be anchored in something unchanging. And that unchanging foundation is Jesus Christ. Because while systems rise and fall, He remains. While the world shifts, He is constant. While uncertainty increases, He is still in control. The Bible reminds us in Daniel 2 verse 21 that God changes times and seasons, that He removes kings and raises up kings. That means nothing we are seeing is outside of His authority. Nothing is happening beyond His awareness. Nothing is unfolding without His knowledge. And that should not bring fear. That should bring confidence. Because no matter how complex the systems of the world become, no matter how advanced technology becomes, no matter how much control appears to rise, God is still sovereign over it all. But at the same time, Scripture calls us to be watchful, to be discerning, to be alert, not to live in fear, but to live with awareness, to understand the times, to recognize what is happening, to remain grounded in truth when everything else feels uncertain. Because in the end, this is not just about systems. It is about allegiance. It is about who you follow. It is about what you stand for. And when the pressure comes, when the choices become harder, when the line between right and wrong is tested, the question will not be theoretical anymore. It will be real. And the question will be this: if everything was taken from you, would your faith remain? Because the world may be building its systems. But God has already written the ending, and those who stand firm in Him will not be shaken.